Welcome back to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Ansherea James works at a Texas cancer clinic, but she's written all or part of some books, TV shows, and movies you might know. But you'll never know, and there's a few reasons for that. The name of her first published book is Little Black Dress. Ansherea, explain.
So I was a ghostwriter for quite a while, which I would not suggest doing. It's really hard to do that, but I've been a creative writer for a long time. Like I've always had a knack for just being a very creative person. So I do stage and screenplays a lot.
Any that we might know?
Probably some things that you may or may not have seen that I may have had some input in. But I can't say because, again, I'm a ghostwriter.
So you don't ever get any credit. You just get the check.
Yeah. I'm also a vocalist and I write music as well. I actually just finished, before I published my book, I ghost wrote someone else's first book for them. And that was really, really rewarding to see that happen for them. And I'm really excited for the world to see it because it's such a beautiful story.
Oh, that's so nice of you to say that. Are you so well known in the ghostwriting circles that people just know to reach out to you?
So some people are aware that I will help with their projects. And even if I don't do their entire project, I'll do consulting.
Okay.
So I might help you get started on, because I have a certain style of writing too. So kind of shifting my style of writing is difficult. That's why it was so hard for me to write my own, because I didn't want it to sound like anything that I had already written, you know.
Why do you work at a cancer clinic?
Because first of all, I love how my family has been spared. So I wanted to be able to reciprocate that care by pouring into the patients that I see and giving them a sense of hope, because I've had brain surgery. I've had tumor removed. I've had to learn how to walk and talk and read and write, speak again. So offering that level of hope to people who may feel hopeless is rewarding for me, especially in that type of situation where a lot of the time they may have like triple negative breast cancer, which is incurable, but it is treatable. And we try to find the best treatment so where you can have the best life possible until, you know, it's time to transition. So finding that balance where you can just say, okay, you know what, I am going to, because actually like within the last several months, I was actually facing another brain surgery. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to figure out how to change my lifestyle to make myself a little bit healthier. I'm not having another brain surgery.
Was facing that the reason you said, I'm going to write my own book now?
That's one of the reasons. And then also I have such a huge, I have such a heart for other people's dreams that I kept putting mine on hold. And in addition, I've had so many issues within my own life that have blocked me, which are some stories that are in my book that I have told within the book. I decided it was time for me to go ahead and put myself first and write my story in hopes that it would touch other people and inspire other people to, one, know that whatever it is that you're facing, whoever people say you are does not identify you.
So Little Black Dress, I love your synopsis. Takes you on a journey through the closet of one woman's secrets and all her truths.
Yes.
Love, rage, vengeance, forgiveness, hate, all of it, How do you lay this book out?
So it is a very in-depth book, and I like to include very colorful ways of speaking. So I use a lot of poetry in my writing style, and I go between tenses. So I will tell a story in chronological order, then go back into the past, and then back to the present, so that you can have a complete understanding of where I was versus where I am and where I am going.
Are you the main character?
I am. It's all about me.
Good for you. And what do you call your main character?
So I purposely did not use names. I was very descriptive with describing um, others um, in the book. So you might see, like, I might talk about, there is a chapter where I talk about someone in the military, and I'm describing him as the army. And then I talk about my sister who is from Ethiopia, so I'm calling her Ethiopia.
Oh,
So there are ways that if you don't know me, you don't know who I'm talking about. So I'm protecting them.
right.
So if you don't have any idea who I am, you will never know who these people are.
Is there a particular moment or turning point or highlight in the book?
Uh, I would say there are several highlights in the book. I think one of my favorite highlights in the book that um, would bring awareness to maybe reflection of how important it is to really heal and understand how you feel in the moment of pain and grief and blame is when I started to really talk about a moment where I forgave a group of young men who took advantage of me. And I didn't even realize that I blamed my father for that, and he wasn't even there. He went to dinner with a friend of his, and he had asked me if I wanted to go to the movies or hang out with one of his friends' daughters who was around the same age as me. And I said, sure. And so we went to the movies, and then this incident happened. And I remember being hungry, and I blamed my dad subconsciously because I was hungry. And I remember he went to eat.
Mm,
And I blamed him because I'm like, if he would have just taken me to eat with him, then this wouldn't have happened.
forgiveness is a big one.
Yeah,
Not just others, but ourselves.
exactly. And it took me writing the book to, I mean, years and years later. This happened when I was 13, 14 years old. I didn't even realize that I was blaming my dad for that incident
Huh.
until I wrote the book.
It sounds like you have a lot of life left to live. So it's not an autobiography really, right?
So this is a volume-based book.
Okay.
This is volume one. And I strategically kept it relatively short. It's an easy read from the people who have read it already. They have read it within 1 to 2 days.
Okay.
I have been told that it's a I can't put it down type of book because of the way that it reads, and I'm so grateful for that. But it's easy to read. It's easy to read, but difficult to read at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, so I did that on purpose to kind of keep you like, oh my goodness, what happens next?
Right.
Um, so it kind of keeps you on a cliffhanger at the end, in my opinion.
Okay. Are you doing book signings?
I plan to, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I have been sharing it on social media. I was so happy to be able to speak with you so that I can tell everyone that I got to talk to you and hopefully because you're so awesome.
Oh, well,
Um,
thanks. Why Page Publishing?
oh gosh, when I first started looking into a publisher, I originally thought I was gonna do self-publishing. And I was like, yeah, I could do it. I could just publish myself and go about it that way. But then I decided, no, I'm not going to do that. I checked into a few other publishing companies, and then I got on the phone with one of the representatives from Page Publishing, and my goodness, I spent so much time with her on the phone, so responsive, like super informative with everything, like laying out all the steps for me. And I was like, there's no way I could do this by myself. I totally need a team. I need to make sure that when I put myself out there, that I do it right. And just looking at the reviews of Page Publishing and looking at everything that I see myself continuing to do with one, being a writer, two, being a speaker, an orator. I see so many things, even with how, again, like I do screenplay as well, and I saw how how they can also um, not only do the book, but they can also transform it into screen as well.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my goodness, this is the home for me. Like, I need to be here. Like, this is a marriage for me.
Yeah, it's quite an endorsement, really, for Paige. It really is. What a pleasure talking to you, Ansherea James.
Yeah, you too. Thank
A
you.
little black dress.
Thank you for talking to me.
Thank you. Marissa Lucchetti started writing poetry and songs as a kid, and then she took the leap to self-publish 2 books, Wicked Awesome Children's Poems and The Best Children's Poems, which led her to publish her 3rd book, Doug and Layla, with Fulton Books. So how did self-publishing work out for you?
Not good at all.
Hmm.
Which is why I was like, you know what, maybe I should try to take another foot into, a company that could help me market.
So where did Doug and Layla?
Yeah, Doug and Layla,
Where
yes.
did that come from?
So I was pregnant with my first daughter. I wasn't working. This was during COVID back in 2020. And I was just like, I was like 6 months pregnant, and I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, what could I do? And I was watching this guy, I forget, he was like the overnight millionaire, and he was saying how he like wrote a book on an ebook in a day, and I was like, no way. How did he write an ebook in a day? And then I don't know, I just was like, you know what, let me try. Let me see, like, and I was pregnant. I was like really in the spirit of like children, and I was excited for my baby, and I was like, what could I maybe I could write something and be able to read it to her one day. So I ended up writing. I have like 10 other ones that I've already published 2, but I have like 8 other ones that, like, so Doug and Layla is going to be a series.
Nice.
I just started writing, and I couldn't stop. And I just loved the little story behind it.
Tell me the story.
So it's about two kids. They're young kids, and they decide to go on this adventure up to this mountain on like a playful hike. And they're exhausted once they reach the top, and they see this like gorgeous like lake. It's like a little, like imagine like a tropical, it's very tropical, like Caribbean type of forest. And so they see one of these like lagoons or, whatever you call them, and they decide to jump in, and they're very thirsty, so they take a sip of the water. And since they take a sip of the water, they didn't realize it was a magical river. Well, magical water. And there was like a typhoon, that like a bunch of circling that goes on in the water, and this mystical magical wizard pops out. And he says, since you drank from the fountain, well, from the water, you've received 2 wishes. And so the boy wishes for a magical carpet, and the girl wishes for super strength. And they both, they take their new gifts and they decide to get on the carpet and start traveling down and just exploring. And as they're in the sky and they are heading back to like land, they see this, this cat, and he has his tail stuck under a truck.
Oh no.
So yeah, so they zoom down and with the magic carpet, and they with Layla's super strength, she lifts up the truck and they save the cat. So it's just kind of that's the beginning of a series of like their little adventures as little superheroes for like little, like heartfelt, like innocent, like adventures, They're super like colorful. They're filled with cool, like, colors, animals, just very creative. Like the next book is gonna be like, they go to like a water world, and there's a bunch of dolphins, there's a bunch of different fish, there's all different kinds of tropical animals. So and then another one, they go to like the zoo, and again, a bunch of animals, and they save a bird, and, but they both use their superpower together. So, I just think it brings them to this creative space, and this space where like, oh, you can be a superhero, and it just gives you that excitement and that, playful spirit as a kid, and lets your mind like adventure and go into adventures, places and creativity. And it's like one of those books that you can like point your fingers and be like, oh, that's a, like, that's a animal, like that's this animal, that's that animal, or
Okay.
so it's pretty cool.
That's great. And you're going to publish how many?
So I have 5 total of Doug and Layla so far, but I plan on creating more. The other books that I've written they're all in poetry. So it's like it all rhymes. So it's like, it's kind of fun to read along, and it's easy to understand. Kind of like not at all comparing myself to Dr. Seuss, but like that was kind of my like inspiration, was like the Dr. Seuss, like, because when I was a kid, I loved like Green Eggs and Ham and,
Yeah.
Sam I Am, and just, like the whole rhyming was really fun.
Yeah. So you're going to need to promote this.
Yeah.
And your daughter's 5, so are you able to go and read your books in her preschool or?
Yeah, so I did get some advice to go to, right now I am full-time in school, but I do have my weekends. I am going part-time, so I do plan on, checking out the local libraries, and I have spoken to some elementary schools, and sometimes they have those little, like, not a soda machine, like the little convenient machines. One of them, they had like a bunch of books in the machine. And yeah, so I spoke to them about that. She gave me her number.
A vending machine for books.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And I know my goal is to go to like Boston, go to like, local bookstores. I know there's one in Lowell, and ask them if they would be interested in selling my book. I was told to go to like Barnes and Noble and ask to have like a book reading, and so that is my goal, to like go to like the element. I have a brother-in-law who actually is a principal at an elementary school, so I have, you know, some outlets where I'm going to try and read, like you said, at some elementary schools and some preschools and promote that way, the whole nine.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Do you have any advice for, people who want to write?
You know, I would say, you know, take your creativity and see where you can go with it. Like, you know, we all have an imagination, and our imagination can take us so many places. And, you know, putting it into words, sometimes you never know what you can create with it. Even, you know, with like your feelings, your emotions, whatever book you do decide to read, you never know, you know, what kid it could touch, or like what, you know, what person it could touch. And it, you know, books can be very, you know, captivating and touching, and you never realize it could be a memory, you know, for like you, and for especially like my children's books. Like, you know, reading to your children is like a very, you know, it's like a beautiful thing, and it's a very it helps you connect, and you never know what like a child will remember. And that could be like a moment that they could, like, they'll be like, oh, I remember this book. Oh, I remember reading it with you. Or, you know, like even when people write self-help books, like you never know who it could touch or who it could inspire. And, you know, it could leave like an impact on somebody's life.
You were just talking about Dr. Seuss and how that left a lasting impression on you.
Definitely. Like it, you know, like looking back at it, like those are the moments that, like, especially children's books, like those are the moments that you look back and, you know, you cherish. And like it's a bonding moment with you and your parents, not just for the kid, but also for the parent. And it really, like, you know, brings you and your child together. And like a fun story that can bring a smile to somebody's face. You know, like my parents, they didn't really like us to watch TV. They wanted us to go outside and play and use our imaginations. Like when I was drinking, when we had teacup parties as a kid, like I would have fake, you know, fake tea. And, you know,
Yeah.
like that's just like, you know, kind of the idea. I just want kids to be able to use their imaginations and, you know, get in tune with that side of their life, because you never know where it can take you.
Yeah, sure enough. Marissa Lucchetti, Doug and Layla, thank you so much.
Thank you.
As far as Rodney Dwayne Butler is concerned, sci-fi is comic books for adults. And once he retired, he decided to use his degree in physics and math and write a sci-fi adventure. It is entitled The Nexus Graft. Comic books for adults, huh?
You start out as a young child and you're reading Superman comic books and the Avengers and those things, and then you graduate to science fiction, and it's just kind of been a way to read for relaxation or to use the imagination to go other places and do other things. So, yes, I guess I've always had that knack.
So tell me about your book. Who's your main character?
Commander Derek Wyndham is going to be the main character. Let me give you a little background information about the book so you understand kind of what he is and who he is and what he's going to do.
Okay.
Sometime in the future, a race called the Savinti come to Earth, and their technology is so advanced that they just, in a matter of a year and a half, 2 years, they just obliterate the population of the Earth, at least from the standpoint of mankind. And its population has gone down from 9 billion to about 1 spread across the face of the planet. But if it has a good side effect, all the separate countries now realizing that doom and gloom maybe in the future have begun to work together and not work independently as they do now in today's time. So that's a side benefit. 2 things also are developed. Medical science has always studied identical twins, and specifically, they've always been curious how twins can come out of separate bedrooms dressed the same, or how they decide they want to go to the same restaurant. It's almost as if there's a nonverbal communication of some sort going on. So the scientists discovered that identical twins have an organ that us common humans don't have in their bodies. At the brainstem, where the brainstem meets the spine, they have an organ that they named the nexus, and that's what allows identical twins to communicate. Well, the second thing that happened is they discovered that they could artificially grow these organs in laboratories, and they experimented with them, planting them in different types of species. And in doing so, it allowed mankind's military, the main military, to build small assault groups built out of a trained military officer who has handpicked a group of animals to work with to go and take the battle back to the Saventi. So if you're with me there, the second thing that was discovered is the sophisticated high technology defensive energy screens of the bad guys completely ignored, perhaps out of arrogance, thinking of their superiority, they completely ignored members of the animal kingdom in nature and primitive weaponry like spears and slings and arrows and such. Commander Derek Wyndham is in charge of Battle Group Undaunted. Now, Undaunted has a number of members in it. It's got a Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Her name is Isabel, and she is just attitude times 10. It has a black stallion that has a specially fitted helmet with a tungsten horn, so when he wears this helmet, Traveler, the name of the stallion, actually resembles nothing less than a unicorn. So it has a Jinx, which is a Black Panther, kind of an interesting character. She's a female Black Panther, and she's got as much attitude as Isabel does. So you get the impression he also has a bald eagle and scimitar, which kind of acts as an aerial scout, that type thing. And the last member of his team, believe it or not, is an otter, because he's found that the otter is excellent at scouting where water is concerned, things like that. So it's about Battle Group Undaunted being assigned search and destroy missions to go take the battle back to the Saventi and try to tell them the fight ain't over yet, basically. So it's kind of exciting, and a lot of things happen in the book. Did I give you a good idea of what the premise was for the book?
Yes. Wow, it's multi-layered. I'll give you that.
Well, it even has a layer of romance built into it, but you'll have to read the book to find out where that comes in.
All right. So is there a message here? Is there something that you want us to take away?
Oh, I've always enjoyed stories to where the underdog somehow finds a way to find justice and fairness and come out on top against the bad guys. So the premise is going to be the underdog ends up winning. Part of what by the way, I'm already working on book 2, but part of what's going to be neat is that it's discovered that the nexus science, the fact that this organ can be created, might be instrumental in going out to the galaxy. There are a number of races out there that have problems communicating because their language is just unpronounceable, or maybe they communicate with scent, or whatever the case might be. And using the nexus graph technology might allow for more diplomatic relations with races that have so far more or less been ostracized or held out of the galactic civilization system.
So you leave us hanging at the end of this book?
Well, I'm about halfway through book 2, so stand by.
Stand by for action. It sounds like you had a ball doing this.
Would you believe, quite surprisingly, Alice, while I was writing the book, I was surprised by a number of things. Sometimes when I would be in the groove, if you'll allow me to use that term, and writing away, I'd lean back in my chair and read what I had written and say, wow, I didn't see that coming. So it was an unusual feeling, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was fun.
Well, are you out talking about the book?
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you a funny story. I had put my suit on and made a call on our local Books A Million to try to see if they were interested in arranging a book signing or a reading or something like that, and I would have helped promote it. And I talked to the store manager, gave her a business card. I had some business cards made and so forth, told her a little about the book. She gave me about 5 minutes, and she said she would have to send it up line. But I had checked Google to see what stores had my book on the shelf, so to speak, and our local store did not. So here's what's surprising about that. After I left, I got a call from a buddy that I had back before I retired, that was an owner of a company that I worked with to help him find employees. He said, I saw your post on Nexus Craft on Facebook, and I actually copied an excerpt from the book that I liked and posted it to the Nexus Craft Facebook page. And he had read that excerpt from the book. He said, I need to pick one up. I said, well, you can check Books A Million, but the last time I was there, they didn't have any in stock. 25 or 30 minutes later, he calls me back and says, just left Books A Million, got the last copy they had on the shelf. So what he told me was, after my sales call, the manager decided to order the Nexus Craft and put it on her shelf. And I assume she probably ordered 5 or 6 as a trial run. I'm guessing there. I don't know, Alice, but whatever happened, apparently whatever they had on the shelf out front, he bought the last copy.
Oh,
Thought that was a pretty neat story.
That's great. Well, that's where you should do an author signing right there.
Hope her upline calls me or emails me and says they're interested in doing that, because I'd very much like to do that. And we're going to, my wife and I, like to take road trips. We just jump in the truck for 3 or 4 days and find somebody, probably our daughter, to take care of our 3 dogs while we're traveling. And we're going to look and see what bookstores are in front of us, contact them beforehand, tell them we're coming through, and try to set up some book signings and things like that.
Sounds like you're having a great time, Rodney, Dwayne, Butler. The Nexus Graft. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. Thank you, Alice.
When parents break up, what do you tell the children? How do you explain why and how their lives have changed? This is the basis of Felicia Mae Hendricks' children's book entitled, I Have 2 Houses.
I just went through a divorce a couple of years ago, and my sons were really young, and their dad and I were kind of in and out since their birth, figuring out what we were going to do with life. We decided we weren't compatible as a married couple, but we definitely have had a friendship and have known each other, a decade. And so we they were a couple years old. I was taking them to the library and trying to find just a couple resources to help them see a visual of what they were experiencing, now adjusting to 2 different homes. And at the time, I actually didn't find one. And so it never left my mind. And as I was working and just kind of figuring some things out, it was a pretty strong impression that I should write one and just share my own story. And that process was, who knows, I didn't know at the time exactly what my intention was, to really distribute a full book, but it was, really meant as a healing place, a place for me to listen to my children a little differently, understand some of the dialogue they were trying to have with me at such a young age. And so really the goal was to illustrate, what they were experiencing, give them a visual to acknowledge what they were telling me, like, hey, I do hear you. And here's a way that I can show that I hear them, by the pictures and by some of their experiences. And so really it's meant to be just a resource for anyone who's facing this challenge for the first time, whether you're a caregiver or a parent or a sibling of, someone, niece, nephew. There's so many people out there experiencing this hard life change. And so to just have another space that gives some of the words that are very common between me and my sons, but also as I compared some conversations with friends or some other people that have gone through this, it's very similar. It's about establishing a routine. And that's what I decided to focus on this one, was just the daily questions. They've had this now as a part of their life for 3 years, and they've acclimated and they're doing well, but the questions are the same. They're in kindergarten and they're like, hey, who's picking us up today? Whose house are we sleeping at? And so just really trying to keep things as consistent as possible. It's not an ideal situation. And in my book, the one that I illustrate also I find isn't as common. A lot of couples are divorced for a reason and they don't get along, and being able to work together and have this dialogue with their kids is very difficult. And so I was able to, stay motivated to keep that relationship with my son's father, because once I wrote it, it was like, okay, this is what I am about. I'm going to practice what I preach here, pick and choose my battles, and then just keep it as consistent as I can for my sons. And they're really resilient and doing really well.
So, how old were your kids when you guys split up?
2.
It's just interesting that you're working so hard to have a healthy relationship with their father, because so often that is the problem. If
Right.
the parents are getting along and they can come together for birthday parties and they can come together for the holidays, if they can be accepting of another person coming into their children's lives,
Yep.
that's like the biggest thing, because the worst part is when the kids have to watch the parents not get along
Yep.
and talk bad about each other.
Exactly. And we're going through that. My ex-husband actually did remarry last year, and I'm engaged and also remarrying in April. And so we've already been going through these transitions, and it's amazing the timing in which all these events came, as I've had this dialogue and talked to their dad about writing it and just kind of giving him a warning. Hey, I wrote this book. This is what it's about. There's been good support there. And my sons have a stepsister on his side and then 3 to have on mine. And with, their dad, it's because of this. And I work well with his wife. They've been a good support, and we've been able to accomplish and really example what I'm trying to have as the ideal, right, in the book and in the story. And then there's the other side. We're having a harder time with my fiance's side, and it's a lot of that similar concern, the parent alienation, a lot of gatekeeping, not a lot of positive being said, very, very contentious, and those kinds of, that dynamic is very harmful, and it's been really difficult. And so it's definitely led me in a different direction with the next books that I'm in the process of, really more highlighting the hard part that kids face and putting some words and illustration to that. And so that's still being developed here. But yes, that is, I think, writing this and living it daily with, blending kids and my own children, and still developing these relationships. It's a lot of letting go. It's a lot of, picking and choosing your battles. And yes, that's the point. When we divorced, it was to stop fighting. If we're going to just keep it going, make both of our lives a living hell, excuse my French, I don't see the point, and so it really is a reminder to myself, but most importantly about my son's experience.
All right, now this is a book for children. At what age are they ready to take this all in?
Well, so the dialogue itself was for my sons. So I read it to them from age 4, and then my stepson that's youngest to 6. And they understand it and relate to it quite well. I think it can go all the way up to, kind of a teen age. Some of the words are a little bit larger. I wouldn't say it's a read for like early readers by, with some of the literacy requirements that it would have. But I think it can be read with a parent to a small child and illustrated and explained, and it makes a lot of sense. And most of the kids that have read it locally and given me feedback, they are between kindergarten and 2nd grade.
What's your best piece of advice for couples out there going through what you're going through?
I think first and foremost, own your stuff. Take accountability of where you're at, why you're here. If you're going through a divorce, there's reasons for it. And it's not just the other person, so it's really an opportunity to self-reflect. And until there's an acknowledgement to the consequences that you're in the middle of, is there room to heal, I believe. You've got to actually let go, control especially. A lot of couples, I feel like they're so used to being intertwined, and one partner is usually more dominant over the other, and is, wants to just be able to have the final say with the kids. And that's what causes all this contention. They're now fighting between time, and they're fighting between money, and most of the time, the first couple of years. And, so it's just like, really realize, as you are figuring things out and as you are healing your children, where are they going to sit while you're taking your time to do that? They're just going to watch you, and their pain is just as bad. It is a loss, a hard, deep loss. I've been in counseling through this process, and that was the advice given. Like, you're going to mourn this similar to a death. You have a person, depending on the length of time, it takes a long time to really unwind a shared life, especially children. And so, paying attention to how they feel, setting some ground rules like, hey, I'm not going to talk about your dad or your mom, with you like this. I'll listen to an opinion, but never, putting your own hurt or your own issues with the situation on the children. There's always an overshare. There's always some level of codependency at times. There's all these easy mistakes that parents make. And I think what I've learned the most is, it's true. Like, our children, they only know us, especially in the first early stages of their life. We are their world, but if we're not able to have the open dialogue to say, hey, you're not alone. There's other kids out there that are going through this. Give them permission to say out loud, yep, my parents are no longer together. That's not something that they need to be ashamed about. They need to be given the freedom and the permission to let new people into their life, to have a support and safety team that they so desperately need. And a lot of times, like I said, the parents are just very wrapped up in their own pain, their own process, and their kids are just being tugged back and forth. And so if you can just sit right off the bat and truly say, what is it that my children need? Every kid's different. We did that and made a lot of decisions right off the bat that way. We knew that we would need time to heal. So what did that mean? That meant a lot of boundaries right away. We did all of our drop-offs to school, never to see each other, for about a year. Just really giving ourselves the time and space to not have this be a continual scene in front of our children.
Are you able to go out and talk about your book? Are you able to find the people who need to read this?
Yeah, I think I'm developing what that looks like. With the publisher, Fulton Books, we, created a little bit of a PR plan. They did a press release, setting up a couple of these sorts of interviews. I've did a signing here local when I got the book just after Christmas in January. And, but there's definitely more. And I think as I'm doing some research, just seeing what opportunities come along to talk about it, get it out there. I've received really good feedback from local, support from friends and family. And it's nice, to know that it was received, that's something that meant a lot to me, that really is the dialogue of my son's and I's experience can be related to. And so it's really inspired me to do more. And I'm doing kind of dabbling more into social media, trying to maybe create more of another blog and just have a place where these hard conversations can happen, realizing there's a lot of resources out there and you're not alone, and good counselors, good books, good, conversations it helps. And you'll be surprised what impact it can have. Like I've sat there with a girlfriend over coffee having a talk about this, and I've had someone say, hey, by the way, I couldn't help but overhear, you talking about this, and I just wanted to give this comment. and just say, yep, my sister's going through it, or, there's just so many examples. And so I think, and then if someone is doing it the way that's not the healthiest, they have an opportunity to think, okay, there is another way to do this. And I definitely acknowledge that that may not be possible, right? Like, I was raised by a single mom, and she struggles with some mental health and keeping relationships. And, when you're dealing with something like that in another parent, you may not get those results. But whenever possible, the idea is, this is an example. This is something to strive to, the relationship to have, with step parents, with other caregivers. And, I really would like to have more of the conversation. I want to tap more into my local and extended resources and just really have a platform where I could be a support. And if I have one child read a book and it changes their life, awesome. If it helps, if I can reach 2 million, great.
All right. Felicia Mae Hendricks, I Have Two Houses. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Originally from Moldova, Dora Imas came to the U.S. with her parents in the 90s. She had 2 children. They grew up to become very successful. And she's written 3 children's books for Page Publishing, including Daniel Starts Helping His Mother. It's part of a series. Now, you say you were inspired when you saw a group of kids at a train station in need of direction.
I started to write the books, because I want to help. I want to help. All my books, they're very peaceful, and they send very nice messages to American families and to children to be nice, kind. Every book has something to make children to think, to help, to care. And, because after all, when the career, I made my career, my children, they're adult, I started to think, what can I do? What can I live after? And because of this is the main reason. It's unusual for me, at least. It's unusual for me, but I came to this decision, and I think this is the right thing to do.
Okay. Your series is Our Values.
Right.
And this is Daniel Starts Helping His Mother.
Yes, I want to tell you, this book is about how Daniel started to help his mother. He's a cat. Why I choose a cat? Because I thought that children, they listen to the cat more than to us adults. So, but Daniel has a human life. His mother picks him up after school every day. One day she didn't come. She was lying in the bed. She didn't feel well. And his friend's mother took him home. And he understood that he needs to do something at home, because his mama is sick, doesn't feel well. She was talking very slowly, asked Daniel how was the day in school, and also she asked Daniel to set up the table. Usually, when in the evening, when his mother asks him to help, he finds everything else to do except helping his mother. His mother takes the dishes from the table, puts them in the dishwasher. She does everything for the family to feel them comfortable and be happy. And he didn't help her. Daniel started to think how to help his mother. And he decided, he found an answer. He will help her every evening. He thought, my mother works every day. She does everything for us because she wants us to be happy. Why did he not think about this before. So next day in school, Daniel was wondering who will pick up him after school. Daniel was one of the first kids who ran out of the building. His mother was waiting for him. Daniel was crying and screaming, "My mother came." From that day on, every evening, Daniel and his mother set the table for dinner together. Daniel put the dirty dishes in the dishwasher. Daniel was thinking about his mother. He was looking at mother's face to see if she's happy. He likes when his mother is smiling. And the book finished with two sentences. How about you? Do you like when your mama is smiling? So the message of this book to help his mother. And this is, explain the process when Daniel didn't help his mother and how he started to help his mother. So I thought that this is a good message to pass to American families, to show children how to help and to think about their mother. Because I think this is a very nice book, very peaceful, and has a good message.
It does. So what was the title of your first book?
My name is Daniel, and actually this book, about building relationships between generations. For example, between children and parents and grandparents. This book says to use polite words like, please, could you please, can I help, thank you. So, and the second book calls Daniel Makes a Good Friend. And this book is about cats again. And Daniel saw very skinny, poor cat, which didn't have, a house, food, was very lonely. And he asked his mother to take this cat to the family and gave food to this cat. And finally, this cat became a member of the family. So he stopped worry about her and make the cat happy.
How many books are in your series altogether?
3 books for now, and number 4 is in the process, published in process.
Okay. Your kids are grown up now. Are there kids in school? Can you go into a school and read the book somewhere?
I can. Elia, I want to tell you that I think it's better. I'm thinking about major marketing, not about local. I want that somebody from Hollywood will know about my books and will do some cartoon. This is my...
Everybody wants that, Dora. The thing is, you got to start. You got to start where you are. You got to start local.
I see.
You know, you got to go to your local school, your local bookstore, go to the library.
Thank you.
Nobody goes right to Hollywood, but, I wish they did. Anyway, Dora Imas, Daniel starts helping his mother.
Thank you, Alice. I want to wish you good health, happiness, all the best, to be energy, to enjoy the life, and all your dreams will come true. This is from the bottom of my heart. Believe me.
Dora, you're the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sharell Gonzales has lived a life most of us could not even imagine, and the title of her book gives you an idea of just how rough it's been. The name of her book, Staring into the Eyes of a Devastated Woman. I caught up with Sharell while she was traveling with her fiance in an 18-wheeler near New Orleans. Sharell, what did you do for most of your life?
For a career type, I was a dancer. I was a stripper. Yeah, I did that for oh my God, almost 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
So when did you start writing?
I've been thinking about it That was just something that I wanted to do so I could get all that stuff away from me. About, I would say, 3 years ago, but my inspiration was how I overcame everything.
What made you finally decide it was time not to just write it down, but to publish it?
I mean, because it's some of the things in there are so unbelievable that a person would have to, actually go through. And I was like, you know what? All this stuff inside of me, I need to put this on paper. Somebody could read this and somebody could, actually use it to get help from it, especially if they're in any type of predicament, talking about, like the human trafficking that's going on, because, I was in that type of stuff.
How did it happen?
Well, it's like, you're a young girl and it's like, it's a lot of men and it's like, I believe I was at the McDonald's in Wichita, Kansas, because that's where I'm originally from. And it was a guy that came and, he had like, just nice things, that'd catch it. Of course, a girl my age's attention, and that's basically what it did. And from there, the beginning is like my childhood, okay, which was very abusive. It was raw and uncut. When I say, from, sexual abuse to physical abuse, and then, of course, I did say something about my mother because, she was just an old country girl. She didn't know nothing. And so whatever, because I guess he was bringing home the money. So he did what he wanted to do. Very angry person, so when I wrote about that.
And because things were so bad at home, you wound up on the streets. How old were you?
15. I had to be like 15. And so me and my cousin, we were together and we had met these guys and it was like, okay, I want to talk to you and we was at the McDonald's. So he bought me something to eat. And then after that, me and my cousin had went home. And so he ended up calling me. And so when I believe when I rode with him, that was the last time because we had ended up going to New York up there. That's how that happened. It was like she met a guy the same time and she went to California and I had went to New York and I was in New York up there prostituting like no other, but it wasn't for me. It was for him because it's the thing that they do when they call themselves pimps.
So what happens? I mean, how do you get yourself out of this?
I had a whole plan. And so, and that's in the book as well. I had put up money so whenever we would go back to Kansas, I was going to leave anyways. So just so happened we didn't get to go to Kansas. He had put it off and told us to make some more money and then we could go, And so, well, we did that and we ended up going back to Kansas. Well, one of the chicks that is there, she was asking, did I want to go to McDonald's? And I told her, yeah, but she didn't know I wasn't coming back. And I didn't know she wasn't coming back neither. So, yeah, it was crazy because we were going to go to my cousin's house because she was in town. And so we all rode together. Well, as we're riding, all of a sudden he appears in the rearview mirror. And that dude, he chased us down and rammed us up on the curb and snatched me out and punched me in my jaw. I must have blanked out for a second because I don't remember anything.
Oh my gosh.
And then stuck me back in the car. And then when we got to the stop sign, I remember jumping out and running all the way to my cousin's house.
This is after you got back from New York.
Yes. I did not want to go back. I mean, it was like I had went to jail up there. Now I'm a kid. I went to jail up there and they didn't ask me anything. They let me out on bond on a street name.
Wow. In New York City.
Yes. It was like you couldn't get help from them. And I don't know how that went. And I always thought about that. Did they pay them or what? Because it was like we were all underage out there.
And when was this?
I would say about 93.
So who did you write this book for?
It's for I wanted to put it out there because it's always hope. Because like I say, in the book, I tell you that I was on drugs and how, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, when you think that you can't overcome something, you can do it. Because if I can do it, you can do it. I mean, I done been through the worst of the worst. I done been thrown out of cars. I done been through the worst, and that's all in my book. And it's like to get up and actually can talk about it. That's a blessing because not many people made it out.
What did you end up doing?
I ran to my cousin's house. Well, the one that was in California, well, she was in town. So I went to her house, and then from her house, I had went to my parents' house. And I don't know how that guy found out where my mom and dad lived. Me and my dad was sitting on the porch, and this guy pulls up, and he looks and tells me he wanted me to talk to me. And my daddy, out of all the years, he finally stood up for me. He was like, "No, she's not going nowhere." Because my father seen that I was so nervous. It was like I was starting to shake in my boots, like as if he was just going to take me. But then I had to remember who my daddy was. He's crazy. So, and the guy just looked at him and he told him, "Don't ever come back over here again." And I've never seen the guy no more after that. I was so happy. I mean, that guy was just going to take me back to New York.
What a story.
I ain't gonna lie. Just by me writing it, it seemed like I had to relive everything that happened, and that was so much on me. I mean, it was a lot. I ain't gonna lie, because there's more in that book, than what I'm just telling you. You know what I mean? But and I think it's a good read, and especially for like just women in general. And it's some men that can get something out of it too, because they have upcoming daughters. And I'm quite sure they wouldn't want no John just picking up their daughter and just putting her out on the street like it's the thing to do, And this stuff you can go around and notice things, and it's a lot of things that, to notice and to pay attention to, whether people are nice or not. I mean, people are wearing, wool and sheep's clothing every day now. So it's like, no fault for anything.
So you wound up after this working in strip clubs for 20 years?
Yeah, and after that, and I had a guy had told me where to get some, fake ID from, because I wasn't old enough to dance. I had to been like, not too much old. I wasn't 18 yet, and I did that. And from then, I started just stripping, and still, prostitute on the side, because it seemed that was the way out, and to get good money.
Are you going to keep writing?
Yes, I am. Actually, I'm working on another one, and it's going to be way thicker. This is about New Orleans, because I've been here in New Orleans for like going on 15 years, and I have a lot to say. I mean, but this comes with a twist here, boy, I'm telling you.
All right. Sharell Gonzales, staring into the eyes of a devastated woman. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome, ma'am. You are so welcome.
Ty Howell grew up in a small Ohio village with one stoplight and everyone knew his family. He worked in the local mill and thought he had his drug use under control until he didn't. His book is entitled Surviving Addiction One Day at a Time. And already you've spun off a podcast in the hope of helping others.
Actually, when I wrote the book, I kind of got bored, and I wanted to do more because I wrote the book to help people, to get my story out there. And then I started a podcast to kind of reach more people.
That's a great idea. Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, so really just kind of talks about addiction too.
Let's start at the beginning. So what was your addiction?
I started with drinking alcohol, and then it kind of went from alcohol to weed, and then from weed I crossed that threshold to opiate pills, like any kind of pain pills you can think of. And then I try to get off that with Kratom.
With what?
It's called Kratom, Kratom. It's not new, but it's just now starting to get like popular. It kind of helps you like wean off stuff. It has the same effects as opiate has if you take enough of it. So I was like a mad scientist with it. I just kind of figured out like there's no directions. So you just take as much as you can to get to where you need to be, and you think you're okay because it's legal. I started doing drugs at 19 after I graduated high school. I was in my second year of college. I had real bad depression, anxiety, and that's kind of when like it started. Like I didn't know I was an addict. I just kind of thought I really liked doing it until I tried to get off of it. And I think at 30, 33, 34, when my daughter was born, that's when I decided that it was time to quit. But she wasn't expected, though. We weren't planning on that. We kind of went our separate ways, and because we've had our differences over a drug addiction. And she called me one day at work and said, "Hey, I got something to tell you." And I was like, "Well, what's up?" And she goes, "Well, I think I'm pregnant." So I was like, "Oh, crap." And I told her, I was like, "Well, I'm still using drugs and I probably should get cleaned." And I told my mom, because she was a 30-year nurse, retired now. And she's like, "Well, we got to get you help." So that was my whole journey through rehab. And that's in the book too.
Okay. Did you ever write before this?
No, absolutely not.
So was
No.
writing part of your rehab?
Like we took like journal entries sometimes. I'm dyslexic, so it's like me trying to write is like awful. So everybody's told me to like, you need to write journal entries, you got a fascinating story. Just write and see what happens and see if you like it. And once I got some stuff written down, I showed my parents and they're like, this is really good. Like, you could probably help out a lot of people. And I was like, who's going to listen to my story? You know what I mean? Like, I'm no author. I'm not an actor. I'm just a kid that works at a mill, and those mill hours are crazy. So I work 5 to 5, and I was on night shift too. So, going through addiction through that and going through withdrawals at work and not being able to call off was extremely hard. But, because you work around molten metal, 1400 degree molten metal. I run an overhead crane. So, like, I got a big pot that just think of like a big old holding metal pot that holds, I don't know, probably 20,000 pounds of molten metal. And you're having that like over your head, not over your head, but like if it drops, you're probably going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
And, I'm running that crane trying to get it from one place to the other to transfer over next door. And it was madness is what it was. My life for like, I would say 3 to 4 years, maybe 5, was just complete and utter madness. And nobody knew about it. I kept it quiet. I couldn't tell anybody at work because I didn't want to get fired. And I just kind of was able to get through it. I got through the withdrawals, and then I kind of said enough was enough. Like, I can't keep this up. I'm getting old. It was easier when I was younger. So I decided to go to rehab, turn myself into work. I told him, I'm an addict. I've been using drugs and weed and whatever to get me through, and I need time to get better. So, and then to top it all off, I said, my girlfriend's pregnant, so I'm going to be a father. So my whole life was like getting really crazy, and then tried to find rehabs, and we couldn't tell anybody because it's a small town. Everybody knew my parents. My grandpa created his own company. He was well respected in the area. And, what do you do? So my mom had some contacts. She called. They said, hey, why don't you go to a 7-day detox? And that's a joke to me now, because I came back home, relapsed after a week.
Oh,
And,
geez.
yeah, the ending result was 4 treatment centers later.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm still paying for it. 4 treatment centers later, in the 4th treatment center, and I went to a really big rehab down in Tennessee. It took, I went to rehab in Ohio. What happened was is I crossed over from opiates to Crantum, and that's an herbal supplement you can get at any any head shop, any gas station. It got me through, but still addictive. I used that for 4 years because it made me feel normal. It made me feel happy, and I thought I was okay because it's legal. And then after my mom found about, 20 bags in the house, she's like, I don't know what to do with you. Like, you just not getting any better. I overcame my addiction after my Suboxone clinic.
Okay.
So I started using Suboxone the right way through a doctor, and I've been sober for 1 year and 6 months, I believe.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so you wrote the book hoping you could help other people?
Yep. I started writing journal entries, and then when I thought I had enough written down, I decided to be like, well, maybe I can make this into a book. And never wrote a book before, never knew how to. So, got a hold of Page Publishing. They're like, yeah, I mean, we'll see what it looks like. I can't promise you anything. And then when I sent them my manuscript, they're like, well, we'll make a decision within like 10 days. And then like after like the second day, they call me and they're like, yeah, we love this. Like we really want this. It's just wild that, I finished it, and I kind of was like, I kind of want to do something else too. So I got with a buddy that's in recovery too. And we decided to make a podcast, and it's called Life After the Party, Celebration and Sobriety. That's the podcast name. We went from pretty small to like maybe 50 subscribers. Now we're over 6,000.
That's great.
And we have them come in and they contact us. We contact them, vice versa.
So you're promoting your book on your podcast?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's awesome.
We would like to get bigger and bigger. That way the message gets out more.
Beautiful. Ty Howell, Surviving Addiction One Day at a Time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for getting hold of me.
A spiritual experience after years of addiction and disappointments prompted Yvette Roland to publish her book, They Never Wanted Me to Wake Up to My Anointing. Yvette, what do you mean by that?
Well, the interesting thing with me is the way it happened to me was, I'd say around 2020 is when it started to begin, with the pandemic and the COVID and all that. And just, I started like feeling different. It's like things started changing, shifting in my life of what reality really is. And I would probably say around 2021, 2022, I had an awakening. I know you probably hear that a lot, but I was at the point in my life where I wasn't understanding why things just kept falling through for me. You know what I mean? Like just certain areas of my life. I was, outside of my house, and I was doing a lot of gardening and watering my grass and just, I guess, talking to myself, not really understanding that, God was there with me, talking with me, But I went through a lot of traumatic things in my life with addictions. It just seemed like everything was kind of like coming to the point where I was questioning what my reality is. Why is everything like this? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to explain it, but I was out there in the yard actually really just crying because it was just some kind of overwhelming realization of where my life is headed and why. I don't know if you've ever had something like that, but just something just came to me, and I was just pouring my heart out there in the yard, watering and just kind of trying to understand things. And I just kind of looked up at the sky and was like wondering, why is it like this, And then all of a sudden I felt something warm touched me on the very top of my head, and it went all the way down through my body to the bottom of my feet. Like somebody just touched me, and I knew it was God. And then from then on, it's been, everything's changed. The veil was just like pulled down. It was like the best feeling ever. And it just kept on coming, and just kept on coming. And just one thing after another. I sold my house. I found out things about the house. I found out things about my ex. I kind of go through the book about things, and then also about my bloodline. I don't know if you know anything about Rh negative bloodline. Do you know anything about that?
I do not.
Okay, well, it's a very rare bloodline. And when I was pregnant, I had 3 kids. I had to get a shot called Rogam so that I could actually carry the baby, because if not, my body would reject it.
Oh.
I'm A negative, but I'm Rh negative. It's a very rare blood, but I'm very intuitive. I get downloads. I see visions. I see different things. I have a lot of dreams. I hear things from somewhere, wake me up right up out of my sleep, and I'm like trying to figure things out. But I know it's spirit. I know it's God. I know it's my awakening. It's time for me to explain my life and show people my testimony of how I got here, because my whole life has changed since then.
You said like things come to you.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I was sleeping one night, and all this is like some kind of audio I heard, because I was asking God, because I know there's 12 tribes of Israel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was asking God, like, what tribe am I from? I haven't even. I mean, I'm reading the Bible. I've always believed in God. I feared God, and I spoke about that in my book of how I was tested at a very young age. And yeah, I am not innocent. Far from it. I've done some stuff in my life. I've been through a lot of stuff. I mean, I went through hell and back on this earth over and over. And I learned a lot of karmic lessons about people, places, things. But also I learned about spirituality. And that's what the thing kept on taking me back. And so I learned how to pray and put up my spiritual fences, like around me, to keep these demonic spirits away from me, because I have the bloodline that I have is very pure. So I have been attacked since birth about this. I mean, you might think I'm crazy, but this is just what I know,
You've been attacked since birth about this?
Yes.
How?
Because of my bloodlines. I don't know if they know about it. Like whenever you're born, you get your blood work done. I know they got people, places, and things that, there's secret places that people that we don't know about that try to orchestrate things in your life, send in different things in your life, put you on different paths in life, because this is how I feel, because they don't want you to rise to who you're supposed to be, that God created you to be.
Who is they?
I don't know who they is, but they. You can either consider it demonic spirits, you can consider it the devil, you consider it the cabal, you can consider it the government, you can consider it however you want. But I know that it is true. But anyway, so that's basically what happened like 4 years ago. The veil got pulled off of me, and now I can see, and it's changed my life. I don't indulge. I don't put myself in places where I know that it's not real safe for me, but I'm learning to getting stronger every day through God and through praying and through, meditation and eating better and practicing different spiritual beliefs, as, just things like that.
So as soon as you accepted that God loved you, your life just turned around.
It turned around, because it was just like God just touched me. You know what I mean? It's like that warm feeling, and it's just never left. And he's always around. I've had so many things in my life that has happened that I just always thought was a coincidence, but it's not. It's not. There's reasons. I've had times in my life where when I was in like doing the wrong things and my addictions and stuff, I can remember times driving home and not even remember getting from there to there. Like something drove me. I've seen angels.
You've seen angels?
Yes. I've seen a wheel in my room with purple flames coming out of it, just sitting there in my room. I've seen a lot of different things. So I know, since I've always accepted God as my Lord and Savior, but I didn't know it was like I was special. You know what I mean? I didn't know that that love his love for me was that strong, or what I'm really here for. You know what I mean? Because I've always been mixed up with like just working, taking care of the kids. You know what I mean? Just
going.
In the matrix. Yeah. In the matrix, never having a chance to breathe, never having a chance to, think about myself, because I'm taking care of my kids, I'm doing this, I'm working, and God had to sit me down for like the last 2 to 3 years. I've been sat down, and me and God have got closer and closer and closer, so he kept pushing me to write this book. And trust me, it was like during my awakening, I was feeling so much different stuff. I really didn't even want to talk about my past, but my daughter's like, it's very important to, and later on I realized it was. And because it was just so much, I don't know if you've ever had this kind of feeling, but you just want to talk about good things. You know what I mean? When you have an awakening, you're just like, oh, everything is so great. You don't want to talk about nothing bad. But but my daughter's like, no, you need to talk about everything that happened. And so I tried to write it as much as I could, but it's hard to write about you know what I mean?
Yeah.
About all your experiences during your awakening, and just, just writing about it. I don't want to be like everybody thinking I'm like some big ego or something, but it was like being pushed to me to get this out. So like, I don't know what it would force, get it out, write about it, type of, write a book. So that's what I did. And this is where I'm at now. So
good for you.
Thank you. You gotta understand, we're not dealing with people, okay? We're dealing with principalities and spirits right now. It's a spiritual warfare. And I realize that. And I know, God's protecting me. And I have a lot of spirit guides and spirit, things around me that do protect me. But you gotta always remember that, you gotta be watching, for certain things like that. But I'm not really scared of anything. I know I am covered with the blood of Jesus Christ. But you just don't ever know.
All right. Yvette Roland, they never wanted me to wake up to my anointing. Thank you so much.
Yes. It'll be known, my story. I know it will. God's leading me, and I'm just following. And I thank you for calling me and letting me share my testimony with you.
Ben Richardson studied illustration in college and decided what he really wanted to do was tell stories. So he begins with Grass Contract. Imagine being in the company of superhumans and then without warning becoming one of them. Ben, what was your inspiration?
So there were a couple. It was kind of built off of two statements, like that were independent. One was, what if John Carpenter's The Thing was a magic system? And the other was just the thought of, in a lot of like fantasy ones, it's just like, oh, we can't tell anyone about this, otherwise like the government's going to come and experiment on us. And it's like, what if that's like the first, like you didn't even have time to try to hide it. It was just like immediately you get put away in like Area 51 or whatever,
Oh, geez.
So it's kind of like built on those two. And then most of the story is just the protagonist Rose escaping and all the fallout that happens from as she's running, and like everyone's trying to get her back and all that. It's a little bit of chaos.
So The Thing was the movie about a research team in Antarctica, and they were hunted by a shape-shifting alien that takes on the appearance of its victims. So what kind of superhuman powers are you talking about?
Like you cut off an arm, but then like the arm's like its whole other monster and stuff like that. So a lot of like and it's like how it's able to shapeshift and all that beautiful fun stuff. But to make it like more of a magic system and less of just an apocalypse. It has like a little bit more limitations, like you cut off an arm, like it's either you have like that immortality shapeshifting thing or the arm can, but like you can probably like have the arm be like, okay, like as it's getting cut off, you can scurry around and do stuff. So it's like that, and like it's not sentient, like the thing like takes you over, but like with this, it's okay, you have control over this.
So Rose, she's drawn to this light, and this light transforms her.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes about the process of trying to find people like her.
Yeah, so it's like in the first like 2-3 chapters, a little bit of a spoiler. Like honestly, I feel like the fun paradox of it reads best if you go in blind, but people want to know what they're reading before they get into it, you know? So she gets these powers and like she's still like trying to figure out what's going on.
Okay.
And someone already like versed in it comes across her, and it turns out it's the worst of those shapeless, the two. Like pretty much like the last person she would have wanted to run into, but it's, well, something has happened to me and I need to know what. Like
and what's ahead. Yeah. So you talk about a shadowy corporation that's bent on her capture.
Yeah, so the group that like she's given to is Zosimos Limited, which is like this big pharma corp that the blue, like codenamed the Blue-Eyed Boy, is the one that she runs into. He's been like giving them shapeless for years now, and they've been like using them for like experimentation and like medical advancement and stuff like that. She is the 8th of them, of the donors, as they're called,
quote unquote, donors.
Yeah, it's like donor 8, and it's like I mean,
she doesn't know who's with her and who's against her.
Yeah, so it's like put into like this white room at a lab for a couple of years. Like they're basically running experiments. They're harvesting from her because it's like you take out a kidney, but then like she'll regrow it. So yeah, so it's not a great time for any of them there. She's like actually in the facility with the first donor, who is like just a shell of a guy, and like a lot of the book is like she's like, well, probably that guy might help me. And also I don't want to leave him behind because I know he's here. So like she helps donor 1 escape, and a lot of the book is like him just trying to get some form of semblance of humanity back, but he is pretty like shattered from like the man he used to be.
Okay.
So
why the title Grass Contract?
Grass Contract is probably like the third part of the trifecta of what made this book. It like kind of like came to me for the idea of like the grass contract is you're being paid to watch grass grow. Like that was kind of the line, and I built off of that because there's like a mercenary group that's like will be hired to kind of watch these guys in case they freak out. But pretty much there hasn't been issues with them. So in the mercenary groups, it's like known as the grass contract. And it's like you're getting paid a whole lot of money just to sit there and watch them do weird things to these weird guys. Just don't talk about it afterwards and you'll be set.
Any thoughts on promoting this book, Grassroots?
There might be an idea, like there's a cafe like local in town that does like book club things. I might try to reach out to them and be like, hey, can I have people read my book? And then I sit there and go, well, yes, I did write that.
A local book club, a local author, where can you go wrong? How could you go wrong?
Oh, how could you?
Why wouldn't they? And then you can talk about your process and how you came up with the idea, all the things you just told me.
Yes.
Ben Richardson, Grass Contract. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Oh, that's not a problem at all. Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.